Good morning, everyone. All right, so advanced, this is your only assignment for today. We're starting a brand new unit on expressions and equations. Most of what you guys see in this video is going to be a review of some things that we learned first semester. There are a couple of new things towards the end of the notes. So you should have a split screen right now. Make sure that you uploaded your notes from the Canvas page, and then you should be watching this video on the other and filling in your notes as we go along. All right, so first of all, let's take a look at the title. Remember, an expression is not an equation. An expression just means that you're adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing different terms. Combining like terms is when we look for those things that they have in common, like do they both have an x attached to them? Do they both have a y squared attached to them, etc.? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find, you guys know that I love to use my highlighters. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look for any like terms. So my eyes immediately are going to the 4x squared and the x squared. Those two terms are alike. So I'm going to go ahead and combine those. So 4x squared, and remember what we're allowed to do is put that invisible 1 in front of that x squared. So that really is a 1x squared. So if I'm adding 4 plus 1, that's 5. So when I'm combining 4x squared and a 1x squared, that would be 5x squared. Now I'm going to go back and look and see what else I have to combine. So I've got a negative 10x, but then I have my constant. Remember, a constant is a term that has no variables attached to it. And remember, I always encouraged you to also highlight the operation sign in front of the term. Sometimes we forget if that's a minus to subtract that. So I don't have anything that I can combine the negative 10x with, so that's just going to stay a negative 10x. And I don't have anything to combine my positive 3 with, so that's going to stay a positive 3. So 4x squared minus 10x plus 3 plus x squared equals 5x squared minus 10x plus 3. And Miss Jardine and Mrs. Gormel always like a box around their answers. All right, gonna get my handy highlighter tool ready. Looking at number 2. So the y squared, the negative y squared pops out to me immediately. That's what I'm seeing first. And I don't see any other y squared. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight that one in purple. And then just like we did in class, I'm going to choose a different color. Now I'm zeroing in on the y's. Remember to always highlight the operation sign in front of the term. That operation sign is attached to that term. And I have two constants. Remember, that's a negative 11 and a positive 20. So now I'm ready to combine. So I have negative y squared all by itself. And I'm going to put that invisible 1 in front of that y to remind myself that that's 1y. So then I'm going to add my positive 2y plus my 1y. So that's positive 3y. And then I've got a negative 11 plus 20. So you can think of that as negative 11 plus 20, or you can think of that as 20 minus 11. 20 minus 11 would be a positive 9. So negative 11 minus y squared plus 20 plus 2y plus 1y equals negative y squared plus 3y plus 9. And there is nothing else that we can combine, so that would be your final answer. Moving on to our chart. So this is definitely a review of some things that we learned first semester. So I'm going to go ahead and find my highlighter tool again. And I'm seeing the D's in here. I've got a positive 12D. And remember, always highlight the operation sign that comes in front of the term to make sure that you're including that when you do your combining of terms. And then I know I see a -2 and a +3. So now I'm trying to figure out, what are the coefficients? Oh yes, the coefficient is the number attached to a variable. Well, I see the variable d, and in front of that I see a plus 12. So 12 is one of my coefficients, and I have a -4d, so -4 is another coefficient attached to my variable. I have two things that I highlighted in pink and two in green. So I'm going to split this. My like terms are -2 and 3. And my other like terms are 12d and -4d. Remember, the constants are the terms that do not have a variable attached to them. So for the constants, we've got -2 and a 3. All right, going to go down to the next one and see what I've got. So I'm going to highlight my constants in pink, constants, terms that are not attached to variables. Now I'm going to focus on what does have a variable. So I've got a 14h, a positive h, and a positive n. H and n are not alike, but they are, oh, I'm sorry. Yoo-hoo, Miss Jardine, different color. Okay. Sorry, guys, I was thinking of something else. All right, so coefficients. Coefficients, the number attached to a variable. I'm going to go ahead and put that invisible 1. Remember, we don't want to forget that. There's an invisible 1 in front of that h, and there's an invisible 1 sitting in front of that n. So I've got a 14 attached to an h. I've got 1 attached to an h, and I have a 1 attached to the n. Now, what is alike? So the n is not like the h's, but I could combine my 14h and my h. When you're naming it, you don't have to name it 1h. The only reason we put the 1 in there is that so that you realize that is a coefficient. Constants, there is only one term that is not attached to a variable, and that is -19. All right, now presenting dun, 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 the distributive property, which we have already learned. Did you learn this last year? We learned it first semester with Mrs. Gormel and Miss Jardine. It is very important for algebra, which you're going to be doing a lot of algebra next year in 7th grade. Remember that when you have a 5 sitting in front of x plus 2, that means that you're multiplying the 5 times the x, and you're multiplying the 5 times the 2. So that means you're going to do x plus 2 5 times. So that means x plus 2 once, x plus 2 twice, x plus 2 3 times, now let's see what we've got. How many x's do we have? I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Got 5 x's. And I've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So 5 times x plus 2 is equal to 5x plus 10. Going down to the bottom of your notes page, this is also a review of everything that we did first semester. So remember, we're going to multiply 3 times y. And we're going to multiply 3. Remember, pay attention to that operation sign. That's a positive 12. Positive times positive is positive, so 3 times 12 is 36. And that would be your final answer on that one. 2 times a is 2a. That's a positive 7. 2 times 7 is 14. You cannot combine a 2a with a 14. Those need to stay separate because they are not alike. All right, pay close attention on the last one here. That's a -4. Make sure you realize that's a -4. Going back to the rules of integers, negative times positive is negative. So negative 4 times 2 is negative 8. And negative 4 times 3 is negative 12. So negative 4 times 3r would be negative, which is we're going to put a minus sign there, 12r. Negative 8 minus 12r. All right, we are halfway there. Here we go. Negative 8 times 7x. Negative 8 times 7 is negative 56. So that would be negative 56x. Uh-ohs, pay close attention. We've got a negative. Remember, a minus sign is a synonym for a negative. That minus 5 is a negative 5. So we've got to think about that when we're multiplying. So that's negative 8 times negative 5. Same signs gives you a positive answer with multiplication. So that answer would be negative 56x plus 40. If you want to pause right now, you can go ahead and try these next 4, and then you can play it again and check and see how you did. So I'll give you a second to pause if you want to quiz yourself and see if you can solve these next 4. All right, here we go. 2 times 6 is 12. 2 times 7 is 14. So 2 times 7y is positive. Sorry, my little stylus is having problems. Plus 14y. Don't know what's happening. All right, so that one should be 12 plus 14y. 4 times 2j, 8j. Sometimes you guys forget to multiply by the second term. You've got to multiply it by the first term and the second term in your parentheses. Make sure that you multiplied 4 times 5. 2 positives is a positive. And we cannot forget, we had a minus 3j hanging out here. All right, now look and see what we can do. So now we've got an 8j and a negative 3j. So all we've done so far is distribute. We have not yet combined like terms. So 8j minus 3j is 5j. And I have nothing to combine my 20 with, so that final answer should be 5j plus 20. Going to distribute first. So 2 times 7 is 14. 2 times 3b is 6b. And I also had a plus 10 and a plus 2b. So, and I'm going to find my highlighter tool. So these are going to stand out to me what I've got here. We always highlight the operation sign in front of the term to make sure we pay attention to that. I also have 2 constants. I've got a 14 and a positive 10. All right, ready to combine. So we've got 6b plus 2b, that's 8b. And I've got a 14 plus 10. You can go ahead and check and see how you did. Did you get 8b plus 24? I bet you did. All right, last one here. Negative 6 times 4. Negative times positive is negative, so that's negative 24. Retros, pay close attention. That minus 3y is a negative 3y, and we've got a negative 6. The rule for multiplying a negative times a negative becomes a positive. Those two negatives cancel. So negative 6 times negative 3y becomes a positive 18y. So that would be our final answer. We cannot combine those terms. All right, just 2 more problems, folks. We're almost there. This is all you've got today, and then tomorrow you're going to practice what we did on today's notes. You're going to want to hang on to these in Notability. What about this? Oh my. All right. Don't freak out when you see the fractions. Let's look and go one step at a time what we've got here. First thing I see is a term sitting right in front of my parentheses, which means I need to distribute. That means that I'm going to multiply negative 1/3 times 6n. Now I'm going to come up here and show you what that math would look like. When I multiply 1/3 times 6, I could do the math. You're more than welcome to do the math each time. I can cross cancel. So that would be 2. Or you can think of what is 1/3 of 6. So let's say you have 6 pieces of candy. You're going to split those 6 pieces of candy 3 ways. Each person gets 2 pieces of candy, right? So 1/3 of 6 is 2. So 1/3 of 6n is 2n, but it was a negative 1/3. Negative times positive is negative. Now, what's negative 1/3 of 12? If you had 12 pieces of candy and 3 people, 12 divided by 3. So multiplying a fraction 1/3 times 12 is the same thing as dividing that number by 3. So 12 divided by 3 is 4, but this is going to be a negative 4 because we had a negative times a positive. And we can't forget about the plus 5n that we had out here to the side. All right, we're getting there. Now we've got to combine our like terms. Remember to highlight those operation signs so you pay attention to those. We've got a 5n and a negative 2n, so 5 minus 2 is 3. And I've got a minus 4, so that would be your final answer. All right, last one. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to ignore that 10 sitting out here in the front. What I'm focusing on right now is my negative 8. I'm going to distribute that to the 3/4 x, and I'm going to distribute that to the negative 1/4. So what we're asking you to do is multiply negative 8 times 3/4. So I'm going to come up here again and show you the math. So negative 8, we put a whole number over 1. Times 3/4. Cross cancel the 4 and the 8. Now you've got negative 2 times 3. So that would be negative 6. So I'm going to leave my 10 out here way in front. So now I know that negative 8 times 3/4 x, remember up here we got negative 6. So I'm going to call that negative 6x. Now this one is a little bit simpler. When you multiply the negative 8 times the 1/4, remember that I said multiplying a fraction is the same as dividing that number by 4 by the denominator. So if you have 8 pieces of candy and 4 people, they each get 2 pieces. So if 8 divided by 4 is 2, now I'm going to focus on my operation signs. I actually had a negative 8, and this minus sign is attached to that 1/4. So I'm actually solving negative 8 times negative 1/4. So that becomes a plus 2. Now we need to combine our like terms. I've got a 10. Oops, Miss Jardine. I've got a 10 and a positive 2. And that minus is attached to the 6x. So I'm going to add 10 plus 2. So that's 12. And there's nothing to combine the negative 6x with, so that's going to stay minus 6x. Alrighty, that's all, folks. Make sure to email or hop on Zoom with Mrs. Gormel or Miss Jardine if you guys need any help. All right, have a good day.